Yeah, I mean, it takes some courage in the beginning to just share really vulnerably of like what's really on your mind, like what you're really scared of or what's really going on.
A switch point moment is a moment in time that fundamentally changes your life because of a connection you made with another human being. My name is Shawn P. Neal, and this is the Switch Point Project. And hey everybody, welcome to the Switch Point Project. I am so glad to bring my guest to you today, Brad Finkeldie. Now, Brad and I share an interesting little story here. He is truly a switch point moment for me, as we have been friends on Facebook, but never really met face to face. And I was perusing through my Facebook feed one day, and I saw a post that Brad put out there. And it literally had just shown this level of vulnerability and authenticity and transparency that you just don't see very often in a Facebook post. And so I started looking through his other Facebook posts, and I realized that this guy had something to share. Brad is the founder of sparksofcourage.com. He says, learn the 5 steps to overcome fear and be courageous, and don't be a chicken. Don't be a chicken. We're going to find out what that means in this conversation with Brad, and you're going to learn a lot about the RV life and a lot more. So please stick around. We've got a word from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back with Brad Finkeldie right after this. All right, everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Switch Point Project. And I'm really happy to bring today's guest to you, Brad Finkeldie. He has been in the space of leadership development. He has been working and doing all kinds of things for many years that we're going to talk about. And most recently, check this out, is now in an RV doing what I have kind of dreamt about doing, traveling the country and just taking in everything that our beautiful country has to offer. Brad, welcome to the Switch Point Project.
Yeah, thank you. Haven't started traveling yet. I am. We're going to talk about courage and being vulnerable, and I'm living in it. I just bought it, and I don't really know how to drive it yet. I've driven it a couple times, but I'm still learning.
I hear you, my friend. I hear you. What led you into the space of leadership development, speaking, public speaking? And then we're going to talk about this chicken thing here in a minute, but just kind of give us an idea of what got you there.
Well, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing right now. I had been working in like the corporate space for a long time. I had a good career. I'd gone to school. I was one of the first in my family to graduate from college, and I kept like checking the boxes, the to-do list to be successful. And I really wasn't that happy after I bought this big house in Austin, Texas, and everything was, I thought was supposed to be perfect. And that made me like pause after that moment. And I'm like, I thought I had everything I'm supposed to. Why am I not really happy? And what ended up happening is I reached out, and I'd never been coached or really even like experienced it. And I don't remember the exact moment, but I was like, oh, maybe I'll get a life coach. I think I'd heard it through something, So I reached out to a life coach, and this woman sat down with me for about 2 hours at a coffee shop, and we sat there, and at the end of it, she kept asking these questions. At the end of it, she was like, I can tell you're not very confident and that you're using your paycheck to impress people. And that was the very first time someone had spoken the truth to me, and I received it. Which is a big part of when someone tells you the truth. If they say the house is on fire, and you're like, I don't believe you, and you walk in and you still get burnt, well, it's not the guy, it's person's fault for not telling you. So when she said that, like, it really made me think about what am I doing with my life, and that was the catalyst moment. for me. And I started to do some things and started to shift and change. And the first thing was like, I don't think I want to work in this job, forever. Like, I couldn't see myself being behind the desk, for the rest of my life. And I just set this intention, and I was like, you know what? I think I've got enough money saved. I think I want to take a chance, and I definitely want to learn how to be confident. And I don't think it was like I consciously thought like this is going to be the way for me to be confident, but I was like, well, I guess I got to take a chance or something. So I set a goal, and I was like, I'm going to quit in 3 months, and I'm going to get my stuff together. And then within about 2-3 weeks, I'm walking my dog. I'm like, maybe if I get fired, that'd speed things up. And I walked into work that Friday morning, and I got let go. And they're shutting down part of the department that I was in. It just wasn't working out. And I was like, holy moly. And then I met someone who introduced me to the space of coaching, and I went out and got my certification, and have just really, really enjoyed the fulfilling process of helping navigate someone's life, or at least be a reflection for them to help navigate it in a more conscious way where they want to do things that are important to them. And that's really fulfilling.
What would you say was probably the piece inside of you that you had to let go? What, ego, pride, what was it that you had to let go of in order to really receive what you heard that day?
Man, no one's ever asked me that particular question. I know now that it was part of my identity and ego that had to be let go. I didn't know that then. I think in that moment, I think what had to happen was I had to realize that nothing was going to change unless I took a chance, because fear was holding me in a position, in a job that I wasn't thriving and I wasn't very happy in. And I knew I wanted to do something different. I knew I wanted to explore more. There's this adventurous side of me. And that piece had to be met with truth of it's never going to change unless something actually changes. If you want to change your life, you have to be able to muster up the courage and muster up, the ability to say, you know what, I want to do something different, and it's going to take me putting something out there in new actions in order for those changes to happen.
What were one of those experiences that, really took you aback and you were like, oh my gosh, like this is harder than I thought. Am I going down the right path? Am I doing the right thing? Was there a moment like that for you?
Well, I think what the most recent experience of that for me was about a year into the pandemic, and I was trying so hard to try to make it work. I mean, I had gone through my life savings in about $250,000, fueling the business for 5 years, and I just had to, I think when I looked at the numbers, and I'm like, man, I haven't made over like $18,000 in the last like several years. I'm like, this isn't working. Like, something's not working. And there was a piece of me that did not want to give it up. And I know that's the ego piece of it. Like, no, I'm right. I'm gonna force my way to do this. And I'm going to have it my way, right? And it was one of the last big pieces to tumble for my ego, I guess you could say. And when I looked at the numbers, and I'm like, man, this isn't working. I'm like, well, why is this, why? And I just like, you know what? Yeah. I need to shift gears. I was living in my brother's house, and I had just, in the pandemic, before the pandemic, I had gone after the RV lifestyle before in a much smaller motorhome, and that was totally fine. But I came back and things weren't working. And I was like, I'm going to get a temporary little place. And so I ended up in Kansas City and had a little temporary room just to live in, and I was like, okay. And then the pandemic hit. After basically hitting like a really hard bottom, I was doing Instacart and I was doing Uber driving and I was all over the place just trying to make my own ends meet, right? And just pay my bills and everything. And I had a miracle show up and I asked God, I was like, okay, I don't know what to do. And my brother called and my brother was like, well, I know you've been thinking about moving back. And I'm like, I've been kind of thinking about it. He's like, hey, you can stay with me if you want. I'm like, okay. Long story short, ended up moving back in with him. And it was during that process of seeing the numbers, seeing where I was in life experientially, like, man, I don't have a lot right now. Not that I've wanted a lot. Like, I'm a minimalist. Like, I'm okay with not a lot of stuff. But not having the ability to do what I want, I let that impact me. And I'm like, this isn't working. Like, it's not worth it for me to keep going after this dream. Something's not working. So that was the kind of like the catalyst piece, and seeing the numbers and being in the experience of like, crap, I gotta live with my brother right now. Like, this sucks. And I was grateful for having the experience, really grateful. I needed that experience, but at the same time, it was also something that let me see it, if that makes sense.
You're now in a space of what I'm going to define as maybe reinvention. I don't know if that's the right word for you, but I really would love to know, as you're, coming out of the pandemic and you have made some shifts into your life, what kind of things are you putting your sights on, and where do you see that mission-driven piece that was driving you before now starting to take you?
Well, I'm literally in the experience of the letting go and letting God. And where it's taking me, I don't know yet. I've definitely got some ideas, but I'm going to let God do the work this time instead of me trying to do it, because I don't know jack. That's what I've learned. So with the motorhome, what's been really amazing in the letting go process is I had all the boxes checked. I want this model, I want this type of layout, I want all this kind of stuff. And I think this applies to so many people's dreams and things that they want to create in their life. Our ego and our identity thinks we know exactly what it should be that best fits us. But one of the best lines I've ever heard is, you didn't make yourself. How do you know what you are for? I've just witnessed this whole process of letting go and not overthinking everything. And then things just show up, and it's been really amazing. So this whole experience has been an experiential learning for me of like, stop trying to control everything. Just put it out there what you want to do. Keep taking actions and watch how people and circumstances start to show up for you. And it's been amazing.
Yeah. The whole premise behind SwitchPoint, and, especially people who listen to this regularly know that, these SwitchPoint moments are like a moment in time when you meet someone and something about them fundamentally impacts you. Maybe it's changes, the way you're thinking about something. And what happened, you and I have been Facebook acquaintances for a few years now. And I saw a post that you had put out. I don't know. It was probably a couple of weeks ago, maybe just recently, but you were being extremely vulnerable in this post. And you told some of what your story was that you were just talking about. I would love to talk about, how that is cathartic to our soul when we talk about vulnerability and how, as you said, when people hear that, they start to step up. They go, that's Brad. I know how I can help Brad now. So can you talk about how, that catharticism that comes from being vulnerable in a space like that and just allowing yourself that freedom?
Yeah. I mean, it takes some courage in the beginning, to just share really vulnerably of like what's really on your mind, like what you're really scared of or what's really going on. Like, and the process in and of itself usually only takes a few minutes, but it's usually run for years or months or a huge amount of time before you're able actually to get out that information. Like how long is, someone listening to this, like how long have you held on to a grudge of being right? And then you're like, damn it, they were right. But you don't want to say, right? Like, oh, dang it, I was wrong, you were right. So understanding that that's just how our ego works. And it's just a mechanism. But the more you can practice letting go, and if you got to do it in small ways and then bigger ways, that's totally fine. But either way, just sharing with yourself first is probably the best place to start. And being honest with yourself with where things aren't working in your life, right? And letting that process start to open you up. Now, what happens when you actually are vulnerable, one with yourself, and especially when you're vulnerable with someone else, more times than not, that other person will feel connected to you because they are resonating with a truth and they're saying, oh my God, I feel horrible about being overweight too. And I thought I was the only one. And so when we're vulnerable, you create a connection between yourself and that other person that in that moment, the ego sees that other person as as like a kindred spirit, like, oh my God, like I have a connection. Now, the secret is we all got issues and we're all trying to, work through them. And most of them are very, very, very similar. But the way that the ego and the identity is designed is it keeps it very narrow and keeps you from wanting to share anything. Because, oh my God, if they find out that I have a secret potato chip thing, they're going to think I'm horrible and weird, But then you open up your mouth and you're like, oh my God, I'm a potato chip addict and blah, 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 blah. And then 15 people are like, okay, I'm the Pringle guy too, But you could, potato chips is probably light. Most of these are probably around drugs, alcohol, sex, and all of everything that you could share. And the more real you are, the more people will start to see you as connected. And it's amazing what happens when you open up like that. I mean, like you read my post and I'm not sure what resonated exactly with you, but something did. And you're like, wow, that's cool. Like I really either respect that person for sharing that, or I feel like I got the same kind of stuff that's going on.
And to your point, I think it's very much both, because I connected with some of the experiences that you've had. And then I also, I had a deep respect for the fact that, you were just embracing this. And through embracing all of these experiences that you've had, good, bad, and indifferent, you could hear the healing in your voice. It was like the shame was being taken away and, you were just allowing yourself to be you. And that hit me like a ton of bricks and made me reach out to you and say, hey, let's do an interview. Let's talk. Let's talk really quick about Sparks of Courage. And I think maybe a good introduction to this is the chicken, because I love what you've got with the chicken. So can you tell everybody about Sparks of Courage and a little bit about this "Don't Be a Chicken" thing that you were promoting?
Just imagine, a 12-inch rubber chicken, and then imagine a little 1-inch rubber chicken, which I'm showing you right now. And so the quick story behind the rubber chicken, and then I'll jump into what Sparks of Courage is because these little chickens are representative of that. is when I had that moment, of realizing I wasn't confident with that woman, right? That sparked me to start making some changes. That led me to eventually moving to Portland, Oregon, in one of my first actual personal development programs. And when I was there, right before I had moved there, I had actually gone on this trip to Ecuador. And I met someone, and he was a shaman, and he was with us, and he was on his little speaking tour and touring the world and everything. And he was just someone who walks into a room and you notice, like, the energy there, right? And he had a mission to empower people, like I do, but he had it before me. And he would walk around with a big giant rubber chicken and a little satchel, and then he would give away these little tiny rubber chickens. And it was, fun and inspiring, and it was cool. And I got one while I was on the trip. And I came back from that trip, and about a year after I came back from the trip, he was unfortunately killed in a terrorist incident over in Egypt. And I felt inspired after that to kind of take on his message. And so I ordered a bunch of these. What Sparks of Courage is it's a membership community that actually just getting kicked off. It's the reinvention of all of these lessons. And I'm helping people spark that courage in their life and do something that they actually want to do, but they need a reminder. They need a safe place to be reminded, like, okay, what is it I'm going after, and what do I need to do this week? What actions do I need to take? And can I have a place to maybe even ask for some help, whatever that is. And so I created this membership community and just getting kicked off and growing it slowly, and little by little, things are starting to happen. And I'm doing it along with everybody inside of this big old motorhome. And I've been taking the steps and saying, okay, this is going to be scary, but I got to do it. And I'm starting to learn to switch the word scary with excitement. And it's actually been really helpful. So that's what, the membership community is all about, people really identifying what is the most important thing for themselves right now, seeing some of the roadblocks, and then seeing pathways where they can be successful in the actions that they take, and then getting support along the way.
That is fantastic. And I just want to let people know, if you want to check this out, visit Sparks of Courage, and that's with a Z, sparksofcourage.com. And you can check this out. You can find the chicken tracker, which I think is hilarious and memorable, and I think people are going to enjoy that. And you can follow what Brad is up to in this community. So, Brad, I want to thank you for giving us some of your time today. I know time is one of our most valuable, precious assets, and I appreciate that you took time out of your day to be here. Thank you so much for sharing with our audience.
I appreciate it.
The Switchpoint Project is part of the Switchpoint Media Network. Switchpoint Media creates raw and revealing conversations that explore the intersection of self and social awareness, growth, and authentic human connection. For more great podcasts and videocasts, be sure to join us at switchpoint.media.